Okay guys, if you're just joining in, we are going to be watching Raid's latest video. It's called a Doom Tower Preview Bosses. I have not seen this video yet. I've waited all day to be able to watch this with you guys. This is going to be a live reaction. So we're going to have a good time. We're going to watch it together and we are going to discuss what we see. All right, here we go. Doom Tower Preview Bosses.
We recently released a video covering everything you need to know about the soon-to-be released Doom Tower and how it works, which you might want to go check out if you haven't seen it yet.
Which we did just watch that one, and my latest YouTube video is all about the one they just did, which was called Core Mechanics.
In this video, we're going to be talking about the bosses themselves.
Two bosses.
You'll be meeting one every 10 floors, and they're not exactly pushovers, so you'll need to get to know them. I know many of you have been waiting for this, so let's just get into it.
Let's go.
Up, the Nether Spider. Her name's Agrith, but she doesn't really get around to introducing herself. She's got irresistible, unblockable, AoE poison debuffs.
All right, so let's look at this. So the first one is we have Agrith the Spider. So she's Envenom Strands, which attacks all enemies and places a 5% poison debuff on all enemies for 4 turns. And she repeats the attack 1 time for each spiderling without an active buff. The poison debuffs cannot be resisted or blocked. So this seems interesting, huh? Attacks for each spiderling without any active buffs. So that means she's going to have a bunch of spiders, kind of like how the spider dungeon is already now, right? That there's a bunch of little spiderlings. It looks like we have the same thing, but again, this one, yeah, it's gonna be different. Everyone's gonna go build their Doom Priest. Yes, we've talked about that a bunch today too.
And she spawns 4 spiderlings that have pretty much permanent counterattack.
All right, Brood Feast spawns 4 spiderlings and places a counterattack buff on all spiderlings for 3 turns, which is kind of what they just said, right? Yeah, you can't take the buffs off the spiderlings. Very different than what we're kind of used to with the spiders already, right? We'll team up with all spiderlings to attack all enemies if a spiderling is spawned by this skill. Agrith can have a maximum of 4 spiderlings in the battle at any time. Yikes, you guys, yikes. And again, we have counterattack on the spiderlings.
Not that you'd want to remove it anyway, unless your team can somehow handle 5 AoE attacks from the Mama Spider.
Alright, then we have Elder Lurker, which is the passive. Is counterattacks whenever an enemy decreases Agrith's turn meter. Yikes. The damage inflicted is equal to the amount of turn meter lost and ignores 100% of defense. Yeah, so it looks like you can't use AoE on her.
Along with all the poisons that come with them. You don't have a lot of time either. Agrith inflicts damage from all poison debuffs on your team at the start of her turn.
Almighty Immunity passive. And again, immune to all of these here, which a lot of them are.
But you can just stop removing them, right? Wrong. Decreasing Agrith's turn meter is a bad idea. She counterattacks whoever does it and deals damage equal to the amount of turn meter she lost. If that doesn't sound painful enough, it also ignores defense. Yikes.
Yikes. You guys hear that? So no turn meter reductions on her. No turn meter reductions on her because she hits you pretty hard for the amount that she loses. So she's going to be quite a bully.
All in all, she's pretty tough. Some of this stuff is unavoidable, so make sure your team has some means of handling the overwhelming amount of poison and is tough enough to tank out some hits. The rest, well, that's up to you. We don't want to give away everything. And over in the damp and grimy corner, it's Borgoth, the Scarab King.
Borgoth the
Fighting
Scarab.
Is a bit of a balancing act. Take a look at his skills.
Alright, so now we're on to Borgoth. Madness Fog. Attacks all enemies, places a 50% decreased attack and a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. Places an extra hit on enemies that have no shield buffs. And the extra hit places a provoke. So I think, was this the one we were talking about that provokes?
First, if you don't have a shield buff, you're in trouble. You could end up being permanently provoked and getting counterattacked all.
Alright, so they said if you don't have a shield, you could be permanently provoked and counterattacked. So Vile Absorption attacks all enemies and places an extra hit on each enemy for each buff on the target. Each extra hit steals a random buff from enemies that have no shield buffs and removes a random buff from enemies under shield buffs. Places a True Fear debuff for 1 turn on enemies who have buffs stolen and a fear debuff for 1 turn of enemies who have buffs removed. So yeah, so it seems like you have to keep shields on.
So you'll want to shield buff up at all times.
Spectral Horror is the passive. Decreases the damage received according to how much Borgoth's max HP has been decreased by. Damage received is decreased by 90% if Borgoth's max HP is decreased by less than 10. It just keeps scaling. Oh my goodness.
But on the flip side, the more buffs you have, the more he attacks you. And he can also steal your buffs.
And he can steal your buffs. So we did see this here as Easy Prey is a passive. Counterattacks when attacked by an enemy that has no shields. Yeah, that passive, guys. That passive.
So you always risk giving him something you really don't want him to have. On top of all that, he's got an insane damage reduction passive that means if you want to get past his tough exterior, you pretty much need a champion with skills that can decrease the Scarab King's max HP.
Wow.
Or at least artifact sets that do the same. Okay, next in the lineup, Kuldath the Magma Dragon.
Kuldath the
He's
Magma
all about
Dragon.
setting things on fire. There's a real synergy to how he fights. Let's check.
So let's see. Brand with weakness. Attacks an enemy, decrease the target's turn meter by 50%, and targets enemies under Hex.
Check out his skills. First, since he's made of magma, you're not going to be able to damage him with an HP burn.
So this is interesting. I had heard something about this earlier. This is called Overburn. Attacks all enemies, instantly activates any HP burn debuffs on each target, and decreases the duration of those HP burn debuffs by 1 turn. So I thought was really cool about this is considering that he's a Magma Dragon, it looks like they're kind of working into the whole fire mechanics of it, is that because he's fire, you technically, like, HP burn shouldn't affect him as much as maybe champs that aren't fire-based. So I think that's kind of cool that they're doing something like this. That kind of makes sense to me anyway.
In fact, it'll heal him with his passive, giving him a continuous heal buff.
And it heals him.
He's also got 2 AoE skills that link up well together. One throws
With
up
HP burn.
HP burn on your whole team, while the other skill instantly activates damage from HP burn debuffs on your team. The pain builds up quickly and is a big source of consistent damage you'll have to deal with. The real danger you have here is the Hex debuff. First, he puts Hex on your lowest HP champion. Then his first skill specifically targets champions with Hex debuffs. It hits like a truck. It ignores
That makes
defense,
sense.
and it also ignores pretty much all defensive buffs, like unkillable, block damage, or shields.
Wow, they say that he ignores unkillable and block defenses and all of that. Very, very interesting. So it definitely seems like these bosses are going to be tough, and you're really going to have to think about how to beat them. And I think that's the point of this, right? Is they talk about how this is end game content. So that's the idea, is these are meant to be difficult, and you have to go in there and kind of try to really think out your teams and how you're going to beat them.
If you're not careful, he's gonna take out your whole team, one by one, starting with your squishy damage dealers. It's no secret that revivers will be your friend against the Magma Dragon, but you're going to have to figure out the rest on your own. Finally, we've got the Frost Spider, Sorath.
Sorath.
We know you like cold things and things with more than 7.5 legs, so now...
So Whiteout attacks all enemies, places a 50% decrease accuracy debuff for 2 turns. What affinity will they be? Wrestling. We'll have to watch this again, but for example, the last one we just saw with the dragon, it looked like he was magic affinity. Guys, if you are just tuning in, we are watching the latest raid video, Doom Tower preview bosses, and we are just chatting about it, okay? That's what we're doing.
Naturally, we combined the two. You're welcome. Now, let's see what she can do. As you might have guessed, attacking a huge beast made of ice has a chance of freezing the attacker. And if you do
Makes
get
sense.
frozen, you're in for a slew of other nasty effects you don't want to deal with.
So it seems like with her abilities about freezing, that's kind of what we have. Pixiel coming out, right? She's going to be the new fusion champ. It seems like she's all about that too. So again, all these champs that we've been getting between like Vergamcar, Elagaius, Pixneal, it seems like they're all going to kind of have a place somewhere here in the Doom Tower. You wonder if the affinities are going to change. I honestly have no idea.
But in general, the Frost Spider has one glaring weakness: fire. Get an HP burn up on the spider, and it halves her chances of freezing someone.
Ooh, so now I like this too. Remember I was just talking about the whole HP burn thing against the dragon? So what I really like about this is they said her weakness was HP burn. So again, that makes sense considering that she's ice and she's frozen. is, again, it would make sense, right? That something like HP burn would be a weakness. So I like that they're adding in some of those mechanics, because like you would think, for example, that being an Ice Golem or in Fire Knight, there might be mechanics like that, but there kind of isn't, right? So I think this is cool to see what they do with this going forward. Let's see, a Dark Elaine we're talking about be strong too. Yep. I have seen that a lot, as people were saying that they thought Dark Elaine and Doom Priest would be MVPs in Doom Tower for sure.
And you'll want to keep the heat up too. Not only does she get tougher when she's not under a HP burn debuff, but she'll also revive herself if you kill her when she doesn't have one. She also has 2 minions that fight for her. They're not a huge threat on their own, but they do provide some serious support for Sorath herself. You'll want to get them out of the picture fast.
Yeah, I did see that revives herself if not under HP burn. Yeah, so it's pretty much you got to keep HP burn on her constantly. So I like what Noob said there too. Ultimate Gallic, Tyrants, Doom Priest 100%. So yeah, it looks like we have some champs that are really going to shine.
Especially if you don't have anyone that can cast a leech debuff. And that's all of them. This was just a quick overview. There's still a lot left for you to discover when the update hits in just a few days. We hope you like this video, but most of all, we hope you'll enjoy the Doom Tower when you get to play it for yourselves. As always, hit like and subscribe to keep track of our newest video.
Is that 5 Dracos? You guys, is that 5 Dracos that my little fox eyes, do we spy 5 Dracos? Oh, guys, this is going to be fun.
Videos. And one more time, we'd like...
All right, what do you guys think? Yes, you're talking about you saw 5 Sippies on the last one too. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The Dracos, now that's funny. Now that... The 5 Dracos. It's going to be fun times in the tower. So what do you guys think? The 4 bosses. I mean, wow. Those 4 bosses seem really beefy. They seem really, really tricky. And it's going to be interesting. How can we survive the Doom Tower? That's the idea. It's meant to be difficult. It's meant to be difficult. And yeah, it is going to be free to play for sure. It's free to play content. You're going to have keys that you can use. It's not going to take energy, which is really nice. And this is the thing, guys. Bear and I were talking about this earlier. Doom Tower is meant to be endgame. It's meant to be endgame content. So if you are struggling in Doom Tower and you can't get very far, that is probably okay. The idea is, I guess, you just do the best that you can, right? And there's going to be 2 difficulties. There's going to be normal and there's going to be hard. You already see yourself stuck on the first boss? Well, like I said, I think it's going to be a puzzle trying to figure it out for how to beat these, because there's some different mechanics in this. Like the spider one, for example, there, where you can't take any of the buffs off of the baby spiders, the spiderlings. Otherwise, you're in trouble. So again, no AoE, none of that. Yes, endgame content, if you could do faction wars, yes. And so like for myself, for example, because I was asked about this too, is I haven't completed faction wars yet, so I know that this is going to be difficult for me, but I'm still going to play it. I'm going to do the best that I can, and we're going to just have to see how it goes, you know? So guys, I would love to know your feedback. What are you excited about? What do you want to see? I know we just checked out these 4 bosses. What do you think of them? Do you think you're ready? Do you think you're going to have a tough time as well? I would love to know your thoughts. Leave me some comments. Tell me what you think. And remember that the update comes out on Monday, December 7th. So it's right around the corner. I can't wait to give it a shot. And I bet most of you can't wait for it either.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed our video, you can catch us live on twitch.tv/LeilaFoxNation 4 days a week on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come on by and be part of our community, and we'll see you there.